Good evening and welcome. This is Simply Frank, and I'm Frank. If there's one major success of the government's policies, it's the one that relates to the mining sector. The resurgence of the mining sector with increased production coupled with high copper prices. In addition, the mining sector has attracted increased investment, and we could safely say Zambia today stands as the destination. My guest on the program, Minister of Mines and Mineral Development, Paul Kabuswe. Good evening and welcome to Simply Frank.
Good evening, and good evening to viewers and listeners out there. Thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be interviewed by a legend like you.
Thank you.
I don't even know why people are trying to throw stones. It doesn't, we just have to appreciate what you've done in the media industry. So anybody trying to do degrees and all those things doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. As a son of Reverend, maybe they think I'm a small Jesus. Jesus was, stoned.
Yeah.
Seriously, Minister, you are presiding over the Ministry of Mines and Mineral Development at a time when this country has never seen such a resurgence in the mining sector. You must be proud.
Yeah. First and foremost, Frank, what is critical is what leader do you have who has given you, the mandate to do what you're doing. So first and foremost, it starts with the top leadership. That's why I've always said, Frank, presidency is very, very important. And it's how you lead your team that is critical in terms of, the achievements that we've done. So being proud, yes, but I must not shy away to give kudos to the president himself, President Hakainde Hichilema, the kind of leadership that he has provided. And I've drawn a lot of lessons from him. One of the major things that helped is because of his background. He's been in the business circles for a long time. He's been negotiating deals for a very long time. So that experience actually played a key role, especially when we were resuscitating the brownfield mines. So it has been a very challenging time. These numbers have not come about by abracadabra. It's been a lot of hard work, commitment and dedication, sometimes sleepless nights until, the sector is where it is today. So it's been a lot of work from the president, from myself, from the team at the ministry, and definitely the entire government system, but of course also the policy of the UPND government. These are things that, we are spoken about even prior to coming into power before 2021. And that is why immediately we made sure that we aligned the policy of the UPND with the policies that government will follow in terms of the existing mining policy there. So it's quite a proud moment. And I was seated at CBU last week when the president was being conferred with a doctorate in mineral, leadership and all that relating to what has been achieved in the mining sector. And I was seated there, I said, having been part of this team, it felt very encouraging and I felt very nice. But, like I said, it's teamwork, but it starts with the one that is on top.
Excellent. I would like to move methodically, like your boss, says, and I hope I don't leave any mineral unturned.
Yes.
Let's start with the big one.
Yeah.
Getting to 3 million, tons. How do you get there?
So the whole picture, actually, and I'm glad you've asked that question, because this is the vision prior to coming into power. We said we have to ramp up production. Now, what do we ramp up production? Because at the time we did observe that actually the mining sector is getting depressed. There was compulsory acquisition of KCM, Mopani, and the Glencore were fighting. It went on care and maintenance. It was just confusion. We could see that this is not the way to go. So what are we going to do? Let's have a vision 3 million tons. That was President HH now saying, this is my vision for the mining sector. We have to hit 3 million tons of copper by 2031, meaning in 10 years from 2021. So now we have to do a matrix. So you, Minister, this is your mandate. I want 3 million tons by 2031. So we have to do a matrix. Number one, we have to make sure all the brownfield mines begin to fire in all cylinders. No one should be fighting in court, and hence the mantra, no mining in court. Because what was happening is that lawyers from both divides having to argue cases in London, Frank, and paying huge amounts of money. In fact, for ZCCM and KCM, they were actually one and the same team because they were both shareholders of the company. Yet they were busy fighting in court in London, paying huge amounts of money. So the president said, he likes saying, in my sins of the past, let's go to the drawing table. Everyone that is fighting, no mining in court, let's sit around the table. We started with First Quantum, because First Quantum and ZCCM had also sued each other for huge amounts of money, in billions of dollars. And First Quantum was at the point of exiting. So we said, come to the table, let's discuss. Please don't exit. When you look at their programs, by 2022, that's when they made the decision to do the S3 expansion, that $1.2 billion project, which is S3, which will now ramp up production for FQM to between 450,000 metric tons to 500,000. That is just FQM. And by that time, even now, FQM is the highest single taxpayer the whole country, in all sectors comparatively. So we said, we cannot do how with such an investor. So let's sit around the table. In parallel, and I'm telling you, Frank, we were doing these things together. Here, this morning, you have a meeting with Vedanta on the resuscitation of KCM because we had brought them to the table. In the evening, Glencore is in the country. You shift to that meeting. Tomorrow morning, the following morning, you are doing Kansanshi. It was a whole lot of work and headaches and all over, people even differing as we were discussing, because it's part of the process. Until KCM, we brought back Vedanta. $1.27 billion investment. Mopani, IRH, and that is another $1.2 billion investment, $1.1 billion investment. Lumwana was also on the verge of exiting. Then, through the skills of the president, he convinced by then the CEO for Barrick. He was convinced to say, please stay. And Frank, they went and invested $2 billion in what they are calling the super pit, which we went to launch. So these now brownfield mines are beginning to fire in all cylinders. So we made sure, because when I count for you, if KCM is at full throttle, they can hit between 300 and 350,000 metric tons. Mopani can hit 300. FQM can hit 450 to 500. Lumwana, when they finish a super pit, they'll go to somewhere, I think, around 270 or 240. So when you add these figures, already 2 million is in sight. That was the vision. Where do we get the 1 million? That's why you've seen we are in overdrive over the artisanal miners and other small mines, like what we are doing in Luansha, your town. Shaft 28, forgotten for 23 years. We went and looked at that asset. The president traveled to China. They negotiated. They started the dewatering process. That is also going to add around 100,000. We have Kitumba mine in Mumbwa. That is another mine that was fighting in court for I don't know how long. It is also going to give us between 50 to 100,000. So when you look at all these brownfields, including NFC and Chambishi and other artisanal miners, you're already the 3 million is in sight. But apart from that, because we were so visionary
Yeah.
We said Zambia was last mapped 50 years ago.
Yeah.
We need to map the country. That was President Echeche, and he said, Minister, mandate is given. We need to find a company that should map Zambia so that as we are making these brownfields fire in all cylinders, we must make sure that we also understand what we are sitting on so that the exploration spend can increase. We have more explorers coming because then they will have known what Zambia is sitting on. Then we put Excalibur in place and they're about 60% plus now done in terms of mapping.
Right.
That is going to attract now more players. That should open new mines that should feed into the vision 3 million tons. But for me, with what we have and creating a fiscal space that is stable, that is predictable, an environment that attracts investment, and Zambia is generally peaceful, if we support what we have in terms of brownfields, we can easily hit 2.5 or even get to 3 million without even new mines coming in. Because all of them now, like for Mopani, their vision is to be a 1 million ton mine alone. KCM, very soon, I think the president will be going to launch the first blast of the KDMP. They are about to blast the Konkola Deep Mining Project. On 29th April, Frank, the president is going to Chilabombwe to commission the shaft sinking of the new Mingomba mine. That is another $2 billion investment.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a basic question, but I think an important one.
Yeah.
No doubt the incentives are amazing.
Yes.
That's why these investors are here. But people are saying this is not commensurate with what Zambia is getting out of it, with what the person in Chilabombo, in Solwezi is getting out of this.
Thank you very much. And I needed that question to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people will tell you that, are we seeing these figures now translating into improved livelihoods? Frank, you've been around for quite a bit. When an economy goes to negative 2.8% growth, that is a serious shock in the economy. It means that people's lives are in a mess. Now, you need to get it out of the doldrums. First, remove that Python code debt, because we were basically a basket case. So we needed to remove Nkongole. Debt must be removed. Number two, we need to make these mines begin to function, to fire in all cylinders. Now, the first line of benefit from these investments are direct jobs. Have we created direct jobs in the mining sector? Yes, and I'll give you the statistics. Since the resuscitation of all the brownfield mines and UPND coming to power, the mining sector has created 30,000 jobs. Okay, so that is the first line of investment, achievement or benefit. That's the word I'm looking for. That is the first line of benefit that people would get, direct jobs. Number two, you have seen that almost all commentators, I'm sure even some of them, you've interviewed them, they have said what you are seeing in terms of benefit, in terms of increase or strength in the currency. Even today, I think Dr. Kaliadia talked about it. It's because there's been an increase in the levels of export from copper. All right? What does that do? The currency is gaining strength. Save for the war that is going on in the Middle East, that's why you saw the fuel prices begin to decrease. That is a benefit. You've seen inflation has gone from 22% to single digits. That is the initial benefit. Who is paying for free education, for example? 3 million children have gone back to school. Government is paying for those children. So it means if it's 3 million, you may say roughly 2 million families. Because maybe one family may have 2 children that have gone back to school. So if you say 3 million have gone back, maybe roughly that is 2 million families who are no longer paying school fees. Apart from that, the government is doing school feeding program. Where is the money coming from? So those are some of the first line of benefits, because now instead of just having a feel good kind of, expenditure, you want now to spend in terms of investment. Education is an investment. For the first time, children can walk. I remember, Frank, sometimes there were dry days where you couldn't go back to school because now we are empty. But now children are motivated because government is feeding them in school. That used to happen, I think, a very long time ago in Kaunda days. So this is the money that is paying for these things. Then we have to improve infrastructure, because when you are talking about 3 million tons of copper, you need infrastructure development. You need to be ready as an economy. So the first benefit will now go to some of these very initial issues. Constituency Development Fund. It's not abracadabra that the president has said it goes to 40 million. He has projected. He has looked at where are we going to get the money for the 40 million. He has seen that the economy can afford to pay 40 million.
Right.
So these are some of the first line of benefit. Then it will continue trickling down as these things begin to
let me combine one or two things, again, in terms of benefit, especially local, benefits. I come from the core belt. I mean, it needs first lift.
Correct.
Wouldn't you have liked these, mines, to provide local economy, raising the first lift of the town, and to pay the suppliers in a much more, and also corporate social responsibility. Again, when I lived there, long back, we had tennis, being supported, football, everything. Wouldn't you like to move to that kind of environment?
So, in terms of our negotiations, and thank you again for that question. In terms of our negotiations, one of the key qualifications for all the investors we were talking to was, what is your ESG program? So ESG, it's the environment, governance, and social services that you're going to give to our people. Now, so in that was embedded CSR programs. What are you going to do for sport? What are you going to do? All those things we are discussing them. As we speak, we'll give the example of KCM. KCM has committed $20 million every year in terms of spend for CSR programs.
Right.
As we speak, Chirilabombwe has benefited in the initial. It has benefited 4 kilometers of tarred roads. And the roads that have been tarred are those that were forgotten. And we said, bring this back. You can see that Konkola Blades, for example, is a better team in terms of how they are dressed. They've been bought a new bus. So those are, I know what you are referring to, because I grew up on the copper belt. Yes. We have, I think next week I'm going to commission 3 big boreholes. One of them in Chirilabombwe, in a place called Pipi, Zambia, 30,000 liters tank through that CSR program. They are sponsoring kids to school. They are doing a lot. For Mingomba, for example, they have done a state-of-the-art secondary school in a place called Kawama. That is what we've been talking about. So we've been discussing this with them. And I'll say this. These are mines that were dying. So we also have to give them chance to break even. Because most of them were loss-making. So now the environment has been improved, and we are running with them with that. The other thing, and I'm glad again, this reminds me, for the first time, we have done a law that compels mines to give businesses to local Zambians.
Excellent.
What we've done, Frank, is that we've started with 20%. In the law, it is graduating. By the 4th year, it will be 40% of the total spend. Now, let's put this in context. Last year, in 2025, the spend for Lumwana was in excess of $1 billion. That's a mine, one mine. So when you combine all the mining companies that are in the country, they could well be spending $8-9 billion per year. Getting 20% of that specifically for locals, and that is not the only one, it's just a bare minimum.
Right.
That is going to build another economy amongst the suppliers and contractors. And the law, we have made it sure that there is compliance, there is supplier development, because one of the challenges that we have is supplier development, developing, you know, our suppliers, because most of them are coming from a background where maybe capacity issues may arise.
Right.
But mining companies have been compelled. I think a month ago I was at Lumwana, where I was launching their supplier development program.
Okay.
They will be developing local suppliers to grow into big suppliers and contractors. So that law, this government is saying we are going to follow it to the latter.
Okay.
There will be compliance officers. And have we done a preparation for that? That's why we've changed the Minerals, Mines and Minerals Act of 2015. Now we have the MRC.
Okay.
That is a regulator now. Most compliance officers will sit there to check, to make sure that the local content is being followed to that.
Minister, you know, copper is the new gold.
Of course.
No, now, you know, we've seen the prices.
Yeah.
We've seen, you know, its usage, you know, in electric, cars and AI.
Yes.
You know, that's, you know, a big thing. The market, you know, is there. Are you planning value addition, for example?
Yes.
You know, electric, cars, AI. What are you doing to ensure that these mining sectors, move into other areas of value addition?
So, I want to politic a bit here. Please allow me. I know it's a program, but I'll politic a bit because I'm a politician. Yesterday, I was listening to Harry Kalaba. Then he was like, why don't we make cables? No, we have copper, we have what?
Yeah.
And even went further to say that no, China doesn't have copper, but they are making value addition. I said, the President, China is one of the largest producers of copper. It is just that their country is so vast, they need more.
Yeah.
So, Milaleta ignorance, pativi, because China is a producer of copper. So, what have we done ourselves? For the first time, do you know, and I want the Zambian people to hear this.
Yeah.
Zamefa, for example, for them to access copper, because Zamefa makes cables from copper, they had to go to the London Metal Exchange. While we are in Zambia, which was, at the time Zamefa was being formed, Zambia was one of the largest producers of copper.
Yeah.
When UPND came, President HH says, no, this can't be happening. So you mining companies, this government has made a new policy and requirement. Zambian local companies, that was deliberate to support what you're talking about, value addition. Zambian companies can now walk into Mopani, into Lumwana, into KCM to buy copper and process it locally without paying the transport charges, because when you go to LME, then they will charge you even the charge. In simple terms, I'll call it transportation.
Yeah.
All right. But now, all companies, including Zamefa, that one, and there is another company, Neocant, that does cables.
Yeah.
Now they can access copper locally. That is to trigger value addition. We have brought battery manufacturing plants in Chiwombo. That is to trigger value addition. We are not just talking. Zambia now is also going to be trading in metal. We are negotiating with mining companies to say, for example, if in company A, Zambia has 2% shares, just as an example, we would say 0.5% give us the real metal so that we trade and even go beneficiation. But we are also encouraging mining companies. And I said, one of the key things the other key thing during the negotiations for the brownfields was, can you give us a program for value addition? So all the mining companies have submitted that. At some point you are going to see all systems go. That's why you saw DRC and Zambia signing that agreement for a battery manufacturing plant. That is part of value addition.
Okay.
A company has already been put in place. IDC is working out the modalities of how we are going to do value addition. It's not only in copper.
Yeah.
even in these other minerals, gold, you know that we are also very keen to make sure that Zambia sees real value from the gold that we produce. So it's all systems go. We have put in place all the policies in place. In fact, the 4 pillars that the president gave guidance for us to engage on is number 1, we need capital, but affordable. You remember that?
Yeah.
Then he talked about we need to embrace new technologies. Then he talked about we need joint ventures.
Yeah.
Then the 4th one is beneficiation of value addition.
Let me ask you in a combined in a question here. During my time, Zambia was selling copper. Maybe young people don't know through Memaka.
Yes.
The question is, why is that not feasible now? Is it because we don't own these these mines? To complement that, I know the investment agreements, you cannot tamper with them now. Again, to maximize Zambia's footprint in these mines. Why can't Zambia, the government, through ZCCM, start owning new copper mines owned perhaps by ZCCM IH, having majority shares? We cannot tamper with the situation right now because the owners are there and these agreements are very, very difficult. Minister, selling and then maximizing Zambia's participation.
So I think you remember just now I've talked about the fact that government intends to be involved in trading.
Yeah.
We've realized that how is it that producers of copper and traders seemingly are more powerful and richer sometimes than the people that produce. So we have said we are entering that space as an administration of being part of the trading. And that is why we have set up that entity under IDC that is partnering with a company called, I'll remember, how can I forget this very, very important aspect. I'll remember the company that has partnered with IDC to do mineral trading. Mercuria. The company is called Mercuria. Mercuria, when you Google them, they've been in mineral trading for quite a long time. They sit on billions of dollars in terms of their portfolio. So we've partnered with those. I think it's a 50-50 arrangement where now we'll be involved in mineral trading. That is about wanting to get more value. The second question that you asked about, please remind me.
The new mines.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is why, Frank, we are mapping the country. But do you know that ZCCM, prior to 2021, was a $300 million company? After UPND came to power, ZCCM is above $1 billion in terms of value. That has come about because of the investments that have been resuscitated in the brownfield mines. And we are encouraging ZCCM to actually take advantage of this mapping that we are doing so that they revert to the giant they are supposed to be. Sitting on $1 billion, you can easily get $100 million, invest in exploration, because after the mapping, it will be targeted exploration. You won't be shooting all over. So ZCCM is being encouraged to do that because Zambia, the government owns 98% of ZCCM. So we have been talking to ZCCM over that. We've gone through some restructuring. It was also almost becoming moribund as well. But a lot of reforms and changes have been done, and now it's sitting on $1 billion. And we have said, this is the way to go. Take advantage of tenements that you have and begin to partner with people so that ZCCM should be what it was known for, mining and a huge mining conglomerate.
Let me ask you again, two questions, combined in one. The usual problems with the artisanal. Can you sort out these? The visiting president of Ghana recently talked about There are huge amounts,
Correct.
10 billion informants
Yes.
from Artisanal.
Yes.
Okay. My question is, what are you doing to enhance production, participation of our local people in artisanal, mining? That is number one. The next one, how does one access the license?
Yes.
I understand there's some armchair businessmen who've got 50, 100 licenses and they just sell those licenses mostly to foreigners, minister. You can't allow this?
Yes. Let me start with that one. Prior to 2021, that was, I think it was a norm. People were allowed to own 50 licenses alone.
Yeah.
20 licenses alone and just speculating over them. When we came, we said, use it or lose it.
Yeah.
So right now, I can tell you, Frank, one of the guys who owned the 50 licenses, they just disappeared because we caught them and told them, we are grabbing them. You're just going to get 5. That you must also use. If you don't use them, you lose it. Because we cannot allow you to sit on this number of licenses. I remember one of the opposition leaders, sometime I think 3, 5 or 6 months ago, who was crying on social media that government has grabbed the 14 licenses. I said, can you even go to cry that one human being had 14 mining licenses? Doing what with them? Because one mining license, which is properly endowed, can change your life forever. Then why are you keeping 14 mining licenses and somebody comes on the screen to come and cry that no, government you have grabbed you are heartless? No. The one who had 14 licenses alone is the one who is heartless. Because you cannot keep so many licenses and do nothing with them. So for this government, it has been use it or lose it. There are no two ways about, including the big guys, Frank. We've told them, the president has made it very clear. If you are not using your license, even you big mines, please surrender it to government. And with the mapping that we have done now, it's also going to be more stricter because now we'll know these endowments. If we know there is an endowment on your license, you are not doing anything with it, you are a speculator, it's use it or lose it. That one, there will be no debate. There is no negotiation about it. Because I feel you, the way you are talking is the way that common person is talking.
Absolutely.
It's like you are speaking for the masses. That why me, I don't have a license. Somebody sitting with 14, 20, 30. No. That is not going to fly.
Artisanal.
So the artisanal miners, and thank you for asking, because this is a problem that has been birthed also by illegal miners. So we've been fighting illegal miners, and while we were doing that, we have begun training. We have trained in Northwestern alone 400 cooperatives. And when you talk about 400 cooperatives, multiply that by the number of people in each cooperative, maybe 100. So you are talking about 40,000 people that have been trained in terms of, safe mining, legal mining, and also formal trade, but also security around the areas. We have done that in Kikonge, in Northwestern Province. We've done that in Impika. On Friday, I'm going to Choma. We have just trained the people in Choma, artisanal miners, to do safe mining, legal mining. So, and we are targeting this year, Frank, to get 100,000 tons from the artisanal miners in terms of copper. But we are also targeting to get so much gold. As we are speaking, I'm glad you spoke about Ghana. We've gotten the model of Ghana, and the boss has said, we are not going to reinvent the wheel. Get that model. They call the Ghana Gold Board. And we are going to create an entity. Of course, we've checked in different jurisdictions what they are doing that are dealing in gold. So we are creating that entity, that agency that will also man the gold in Zambia. And as we are doing that, we are also busy training the artisanals so that everything falls in place. That concept is already, I think it was approved by the Legislative Committee of Cabinet. It's going to Cabinet. Cabinet approves, goes to Parliament, it will be law. Nobody will be doing shenanigans around the gold.
Recently, you removed the illegal miners in
Yes.
northwestern province, and
Yes.
I wrote about this on my page, and I praised the work of security wings, especially the ZNS. But we hear stories that the big boys are still finding, loopholes. The big boys, I mean, people like you, the people who are influential, are still privately, mining, whilst the illegal ones have been, removed. Please clarify that, Minister. Again, I'm combining questions as part of the question. Mapping, exploration. This question I'm going to ask you. If you don't want, please don't answer, because it's still on the table. The health aid from the USA related to exploration. Could you clarify this? I know this agreement is still on the table, but could you put the country at peace, and how far this exploration is supposed to go, if it's going to, to be there? These two questions.
So the issue of officers or influential people,
mining in these areas
involved. What I would say is that government has given mandate to the Zambia Army to man these areas.
Right.
It was also part of the four conditions that the president gave. Number one, there will be no illegal mining. Number two, there will be safe mining. Number three, there has to be formal trade. People must trade formally and pay taxes. Number four, security around these areas. And this fourth one is the one that should start, because there's been already illegal mining. So illegal mining, Frank, is sponsored by powerful people. That I'll admit. There is no illegal miner who just go there and do illegal mining for nothing. They are sponsored. They have lords. And this is a problem that has been entrenched for a very long time. So we are actually fighting. It's a form of fighting criminality. When you look at the young boys that do illegal mining, most of them end up just paupers. But they are lords that get those things. So, yes, there could be people who could misbehave, but now the Zambia Army has stamped its authority. They have 100% backing from the president, 100% backing from myself as his minister. So, if there are people that could be doing other shenanigans in the night, the law will catch up with them. You know, it's like when I always say, when you say we have the police, we have soldiers, we have everybody, thieves will always be there. But they have to be, dealt with by the law. So if there are people that are misbehaving around these areas, the law will catch up with them. But also, what we've done as government is not to leave a gap, because sometimes what creates that is that you have chased the illegal miners. What is next? But if the way we've done it, as we were removing them, we were busy training those that would do it legally and safely. So if there are those that are playing games there, the law will catch up with them. As to your second question, what I would say, priority number one in any engagement in this world for the president is the Zambian people. There will be nothing or no deal in this world that the president will ever agree to that will disadvantage the Zambian people. That is not going to fly. I've sat with this president in cabinet for the past 4 years, going into 5 now. There will be nothing, and I want to assure our people, that will be done to disadvantage Zambia. Zero. Our dealings in this world is with everyone. Mopani is in the Arab world. KCM is in Asia. Kitumba or NFCA is China. So everybody is on the table. Mingomba mine in Chilabombo is America. Okay, so everybody is on the table in terms of the mining space. So anything that is done must be done, and I must dare say, will be done to advantage the Zambian people, and it has to be a win-win situation.
Talk about protecting the Zambian people. Minister, even the children should be protected.
Exactly.
There's child labor. in some of these,
Yes. Yes.
mining. What are you doing to
Training.
protect the children?
Training.
So the children are not exploited.
In fact, we have said, as the soldiers are removing this, because like I said, illegal mining is sponsored.
Yeah.
And usually when they want to use these small boys, it's because they want cheap labor. Yet they are exposing these young girls and boys to death, early death. So, as we are training them, we are saying, if we ever find any underage child on your license, we cancel it. No negotiation.
Yeah.
Even the soldiers where they are going, as they are removing them, that is being said.
Yeah.
No child labor, no underage children in the mining pits. We want trained, safely dressed, including the PPE,
Yeah.
so that when you do your mining, you are in a safe environment.
Absolutely.
So there will be no child that would be allowed. Like I said, you can have the police, but have thieves. Those that will be found wanting will cancel licenses straight.
Minister, this country, your government, our government, took over a massive, debt.
Yes.
You're still, borrowing to enhance the living standards of our people, enhance the economy. I'm not an expert at mining, but I hear the kind of figures that comes from gold, illegal mine, that comes from Sujirite, Mukula, out there. Surely, Minister, if you had to manage these properly,
underline that word.
Yes, if you had to manage this properly, this date of 20 billion or whatever or dollars could be paid within 2 years.
Yes.
It can.
Yes. I agree with you.
It can.
I agree with you.
Let me include emeralds also.
Yes.
It can.
I'll
tell you a story about emeralds very quickly. I know we're running out of time. A friend of mine was running an emerald mine on the Copper Belt. An Indian. He made so much money, Minister. He just gave up. Sold the mine cheaply and left with a lot of money. And he has improved part of India. The other foreigner, the comes from West Africa. He has built in Canada. Surely, Minister, and we're just watching
we are not.
Zambians when there's a government.
We are not.
Our children will be indebted to this date. Our grandchildren. No, Minister. This country is not poor.
No, it's not. And I'll tell you. That is why, again, with this question, I'll even do politics. Because what is critical, Frank, in any jurisdiction, in any scenario, and I would love you to give me a chance to really explain this.
I'll give you 3 minutes because we've got about 10 minutes or so. 3 minutes on that.
Wow, I'll try.
You try.
I'll try. What is critical in everything, be it in mining, agriculture, is leadership. Because minerals are there, Frank, quite all right. Zambia, well endowed. But minerals are in the ground. You have to mine them. You have to do the science of mining. So, as you are mining, as the minerals are in the ground, they don't give you value until they are extracted. So, that is where sometimes we've missed it. It is through that process where you begin mismanagement, corruption, and all those things. What you need is to properly structure systems in place that will ensure that you get the value that you must get from the things that you are endowed with. Even in agriculture, we have vast land. Why haven't we utilized the vast land and the water bodies that we have so that we can be a big feeder of this continent because we are well endowed. So even in minerals, yes, but the gold is in the ground. The copper is in the ground. Is this government now managing? Yes, that's why it said, okay, the low-hanging fruit first are these mines that are already committed, but let's bring them to the table because after all, they contribute 16 to 18% of GDP in their state when they are firing in all cylinders. And it has shown by how the economy has responded. What else should we now do? Yes, we have the minerals, so let's map. Mapping is basically pointing to say, there is that stand there is that stand there. So don't look for a stand there.
Okay.
Look for a stand on that point, on that point, on that point. The second point is, how do you strike deals? That should make sure that you benefit, because Frank, mining, to just start a mine, you must already be rich.
Yeah.
So you need capital to come in, but capital that is manageable, but with proper deals, like we did for Mopani. You are going to have 49%, you are going to have 51%. Those are deals, not where you say, you start a mine and say Zambia is going to have 10%, you, the investor, 90%. You can't. How do you get value out of that? Apart from that, why we are even building things like local content, the economy amongst, that is also value being extracted from our resources.
Yeah.
You know, the salaries that people are getting. Because if we have so many people involved in the economy, government will collect more. It means they can easily pay the debt. But also what you are talking about, ZCCM, get a mine, start mining.
Yeah.
Because that is now Zambia mining. You are now $1 billion company. Let's get part of that money and invest. A return on that investment we are able to pay. So what we need is proper leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership that is focused. Not the country will not move. Just me being minister, Frank, I've experienced the fact that for me to do this job effectively, I need a certain lifestyle.
Right.
Because otherwise I'll just be playing and this ministry won't move.
Yeah.
So I need to be disciplined, to be focused. It's not time to play. The questions you are asking me, it's not you. It's the Zambian people.
Absolutely.
They are asking me that how is our president thinking about the mining sector? And I have to explain, because he has given me the mandate to run the ministry.
Right.
So I'm talking on behalf of him and myself, and so that we answer to the people that gave us the mandate.
Catch-22 situation.
Yes.
You know, you have to make money from the mines, the revenue, you know, to support social sectors and economic sectors. At the same time, you have to be wary about environment. There's a mining company, I don't want to name it, you know, recently polluted water. It's been given back the license. Can't you find a balance that you're going to make money at the same time, protect this God-given, country?
Of course, and I want to say that this government is highly intolerable to pollution, because what is the point? You make money out of minerals. That money, people can't access it because they are sick, they are dying. So, yes, a pollution happened. We followed the law. There is a law that is in place that follows when such things happen. The cleaning was done. People can access water. The company, of course, has been penalized as provided for by the law. And they did all the requirements that should have been done by ZEMA, Mine Safety Department, so that now warranted, because they've been shut almost for a year.
Yeah.
That warranted now their license to be given back, because they had done all the remedial works that the law requires for them to do. But of course, they were given stern warning.
Yeah.
We've given everyone in the mining sector stern warning, and the ministry has gone round through all the mines to tell them this is how we want to make sure all the dams are in this country. We don't want compromise.
Right.
So that is why we have said, when we were negotiating, we looked at the ESG, and the E stands for environment. How are you going to make sure that you take care of the environment? You don't pollute.
I go back to benefits, and as we're coming towards the end of the program, the locals, through chiefs, are they benefiting enough? Are they being supported, economically, by the investors, or is it, or does this create a different dimension for those provinces that don't have, minerals? I hope you understand what I'm talking about. That there could be imbalance if those areas where there's minerals, the locals are benefiting as against other provinces that don't have.
Yeah, so
How you handling that?
Yes. 2 days ago, when the president was opening, I think we had what we are calling PDU Day.
Yeah.
He mentioned something about regional economies.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
Exactly. So he said we have to create regional economies. One of the things that he has said is that we need to have a big mine in each province. Okay?
Yep.
And right now, we may be seeing a big mine of phosphate opening in Eastern Province. We are going to maybe seeing a big mine of gold opened in Muchinga Province. Now, the mapping exercise is actually indicating the preliminary results. They're not yet released, but it's indicating that we could be endowed with everywhere. So, like I talked about leadership, we have to structure now economic activities around those tenements, like it has been on the Copper Belt.
Yeah.
So that we have now economic activities, the entire region, and every province, Frank, has got something that they can do, either in terms of agriculture, in terms of hydropower, in terms of solar, but it requires decisive leadership and visionary for that matter.
Yeah.
So when you talk about regional economies, it means that each province or each region must be mandated to feed in the central economy.
Yeah.
So that not to have a lopsided kind of country that this region is producing copper, the whole copper. Most of the things that have been done across the country, Frank, were because of the copper from the Copper Belt.
Yeah.
So we needed each province. Now, Northwestern has come on board. We want Southern to come on board. We want Eastern to come on board. But it's decisive, visionary leadership that will help us achieve this. It's not going to be easy because we're a bit late.
Yeah. 2 minutes, these three questions into one. This country needs money. Foreign exchange flight, because there are no regulations. Is there a way that the money and by the mining, companies can stay a little bit longer in the central bank? That is one question. Second question, windfall tax. When Levy, may his soul rest in peace, was a president, introduced windfall tax, and the prices are massive. Okay, and then finally the future.
So number one, you
foreign exchange flight.
Okay, yeah.
If it can stay in the bank a little bit more, windfall tax.
So that matter is actually very actively being discussed.
Excellent.
Yeah. So that's the whole.
So we got it here first on BMTV.
Yeah. That matter is very actively being discussed on how the modalities on how that can be done, so that we feel the impact in terms of windfall tax. Our belief, and please Zambian people, is let's just produce more. If we do 3 million tons with the current copper price, we are going to be $30 billion turnover from the mines every year. Tax that money. It's as good as a windfall tax. So what is important is high productivity. That 30 billion, apart from being, it is first going to leave some mineral royalty, because mineral royalty, whether you want it or not, you have to leave it. Apart from that, income tax. Apart from that, salaries to workers. So that 30 billion, you realize that maybe within the economy, 10, 15 billion may remain within the economy.
Okay.
All right? That already makes the kwacha dance.
Yeah.
So what is critical is high productivity. That's why this 3 million tons is not just a song.
Yeah.
It's a way to see more benefit. Even if you say windfall tax today and production is like this, you still won't see the money.
Okay.
What is critical? Let's produce more. When we produce more, the economy's GDP will be so big.
Okay.
And you feel it.
Okay. The future. And in the future, you made reference slightly to the Middle East war, and
Yes.
fuel is key
Yes.
in the mining sector.
Very key.
Do you see any impact there?
Of course, there will be an impact. Prices have already started going up. The impact will be there. I just pray and hope this war can end quickly,
Yeah.
so that the gains that we've made in the economy are not disturbed, because inflation going to single digits, the kwacha gaining strength and stability within the economy, all those things can be wiped out if because of external shocks. We've restructured the debt. We are on free education now, 3 million children back in class. And so we wouldn't want this war to disturb us, because if the mining companies are affected and they are affected in terms of productivity, then the income we are getting from there goes down.
Right.
What pushes income up is high exports, because now we are earning more from those exports. So we wouldn't want a depressed mining sector because of that war.
The future.
So the future for Zambia is very bright. And I'll take advantage of this program and say, let us not play around with leadership. Let us not debate. I'm seeing certain people that are aspiring, Frank, to be presidents, and the way they are talking, explaining things. Somebody was even saying, why have you increased CDF? I said, 2 days ago, I was in a place called Miteta and a place called Nowhere. I was commissioning very nice maternity annex with all equipment, all drugs, proper, because of CDF. So you can't question its impact. So for me, the future for the mining sector is very bright with what we have put in place, with 12 billion worth of investment, people getting jobs. Yes, we may not have gotten to where we would like to be, but we are getting there. We are moving in a positive direction. So please, let's not gamble as we go to August. Let's not gamble with leadership, because leadership is what brings stability. Leadership is what will take us to prosperity. And Zambia is heading there. Yes, the people are saying, no, the fundamentals, yes, they are strong. The numbers are looking good, but there is no trickle down. I've just explained the first line of benefit. Because those now who are working, they are now feeding families. Those who are doing supply and contracts, they are now feeding families and employing. So that is slowly how the effect will go to our people. So the future is very bright, and we are looking forward to it.
Is Paul Kabuswe presiding over the biggest national revenue going to stand in Chilabombo?
Definitely. I'm seeking a fresh mandate, and I think what we've done in Chilabombo gives me a lot of confidence, above 60-70%, that I'll retain my seat, because I think most of the things that we promised our people in Chilabombo, I think we've touched. So I'm very confident that I will win, seeking a fresh mandate from the Zambian people, of course, courtesy of God's will. And I'm pretty sure my president will get a lot of votes in Chilabombo.
You've just talked about inner God. As a son of a reverend, I always ask this question. If we leave the studio, and we're going to leave the studio soon,
yes,
and you met, Jesus, outside, what conversation would you undertake with him?
First and foremost, I'll fall prostrate to worship him.
Yeah.
Because of what I have seen him do in my own life.
Yeah.
He's been very, very present in my life.
Yeah.
And times when I've felt he's not present, he's actually more present. So that is the first thing. I'll fall prostrate and worship him. And the first word that will come from my mouth is thank you, from where I've come from where I am, for where I am, and for where I am going, because I have seen you in my life in reality. Saved my life. I've gone through turmoil that only God could have gotten me out.
Paul Kabuswe, Minister of Mines and Mineral Development, thank you for appearing on Simply Frank.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been Simply Frank. My guest, Honorable Paul Kabuswe, Minister of Mines and Mineral Development. This has been Simply Frank, and I'm Frank. Good night.